Well, look at this. New deal signed, massive fight around the corner, some big life news as well, and we're sitting here with Dan Hooker on the eve of a 10-year anniversary in the UFC. Dan, thank you so much for joining us here in Perth,
I'm
man.
getting a bit jealous of you boys because you got your little submission radio thing and then I'm just sitting here naked.
Do you want ours?
Well, I want... Well, then you will see. Yeah, I'll give you one.
It's all happening.
Asking you shall receive, my friend.
Just go slowly. Yeah.
I don't normally slip it on for other people, but there you go, Dan.
Now that you got the submission radio dinger on, man, tell us, how does it feel to be sitting here on this special time in your career, dude?
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. 10 years. So that's like a pretty cool milestone. I didn't even realize it was coming up. 10 years. This will be my 22nd fight in the UFC. And kid in a candy store. I'm just, if not more excited for this fight than I have been for any other fight of my career.
Do you think that's common? Do you think people get more and more excited for fights as they get on with their career? I almost feel like towards the end of the career, like there's different feelings. You seem even more excited than when you were,
I think
starting
it's
out.
like, well, you get like more comfortable. I guess like the time off, if like back-to-back arm breaks and the time off has just given me like a real appreciation for everything. Like, it's not going to last forever. So it's like you just want those like special moments now, really. Like why I wanted to be a part of this card is because Kai's on here, Israel's on here. And I know that it's like everything else fades away, like who you're fighting, who you beat, what number they were in the world. Like all of that stuff just kind of fades into the past, and you're going to remember those like special times with your teammates and friends and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess it's more I'm competing on this card and more excited for just the moment that we're having right now.
Dude, heaps of good moments happening for you. Baby number 2 on the way as well. Congratulations about that.
Thank you, sir.
No submission radio dinger prior, right?
It took too long to give it to him. Next time we should have shipped it quicker. But stop now. Number 3. It'd be nice to have a few kids. I have one, and it's too much for me personally. And because I do have a lot of mental breakdowns with the one kid, he's 2 years old now. What is the number one Dan Hooker parenting advice that someone at home right now who's watching MMA coverage can take away? Potentially.
Dan Hooker parenting.
Yeah, number one.
You're taking parenting
Number
advice.
one, brother. Number one.
Number one, brother, is don't take parenting advice off Dan. I might get to be the cool one. Like my wife is the one that tells her off and stuff like that. I'm just the cool one that has fun, and we just stay up late and eat too much ice cream. Like I'm the good cop. It's good cop, bad cop.
That's the secret to life, right? Basically, a lot of ice cream, a lot of hugs.
Gets you out. It makes you happy. You know what I mean? Whatever. We do a regular trip to the toy shop where
yeah, I do that as well.
Weekly toy shop. Yeah, she's like, do this. Nah, I'll take you to toy shop. Bang, she's in.
There you go. Great tip. Yeah.
I was gonna say, speaking of going to toy shop,
it's not a cheap. It's not a cheap tip.
Yeah.
Well, this is where the new 5-fight deal comes in, right? A lot of toy shop trips.
No, he's right.
In the future,
he's
you're
right.
going to be going to trips to the toy shop for yourself. How did this new 5-fight deal come about?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of not managing myself anymore. I'm not sitting there listening to all the nasty stuff that the UFC has to say about me. But yeah, it's obviously been in the works for some time. Like I've been on my last fight that was supposed to be like the Bobby Green fight and stuff like that. So it's just been something that's been in the background for quite a while now. But to just get it all signed up before this big deal, and yeah, like as far as I know, like besides your big pay-per-view guys and the champs and that, I'll be probably the highest paid lightweight floating around out there. So
really? They're looking after you.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Oh, you got to stand your ground, brother. There's no... They don't pay you. They don't pay you for acting nice. Like it's but I never take any of it personally. Yeah, it's there's no business. Like there's not a single business in the world that will pay you more than you're worth. Like, and it's like not even pay you more than you're worth, but pay you more than you're willing to stand your ground over, and you kind of just need to draw a line in the sand at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I know you spoke about BKFC and some other promotions and stuff. So it's cool. I mean, how does it feel for you to be able to keep fighting in the UFC? It's kind of cool.
Yeah, you want to fight in the UFC, like that's where everyone's attention is. The eyes are on the UFC. It's like you kind of can see it with like a lot of other guys' careers. Besides, like Mike Perry, who's gone and made pretty much a massive name for himself in BKFC, and like probably makes more money doing that than he would have ever made inside of the UFC. But you see it in a majority of guys' careers. It's like once they lose that UFC like name next to them, they just kind of fade into non-existence.
So 5-fight deal. Did the Charles Oliveira fight count as one of them, or what was the deal there?
Oh, that was, you just shouldn't put me on live television. That's just...
The UFC should have known better. That's the reality there.
Oh,
Guys,
Their fault.
are you sure we're allowed to
whole
do this,
shebang.
Dan?
Well,
Yeah,
it was like a double banger, really. They put me on. I was on Fox Sports Australia with the Volk on the show, and they asked me who I was going to fight, and I actually had zero fight in the pipe with that, and I was like, oh well, I'm just going to announce it, and they're like, why Charles Oliveira? I was like, well, he's pretty much the only cob I haven't called out in the world, so I was like, I'm going to announce Charles Oliveira live television. Then after they, like, everyone kind of reacted to that, thought it was pretty funny, and
What
then
did
it came.
what did the UFC say?
Oh, they were just like, and then Sean Shelby said, why not just fight for a title? And my manager said, why not?
Yeah.
He said, sounds good to us. But yeah, and then the next one was like the UFC PR team all came over for like to hype this fight with Kai and Israel, and they took us to the All Blacks, and then they were going to have Israel do an interview right before the game started, but obviously it's Israel, so he was late. He missed the start of the game, so me and Kai got sent up. So I wasn't supposed to announce my fight with Gamrot, and I was like, because that contract hadn't been signed at that point. So they put me on live television again. I just announced my fight on live television right before the All Blacks, which every single household in New Zealand is there sitting watching. And
Assertive.
then straight out it came, and I just looked at the UFC PR team, and I was just like,
You brought this on yourself.
this is your bad. I was like,
You did this.
I am not even taking responsibility for this. Like, you thought you could put me on live television?
Were they like, oh, Dan, that rascal? Or were they a bit more serious about it?
Nah, we were like, what's done is done now.
That's it.
Dan, you rascal.
Yeah.
Stay out of it, mate. Lesson learned.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
Do you feel like a little bit responsible because you started this rumor about fighting Charles Oliveira, and then I kind of feel like you're the one who started the rumors, and now people think he was dating Ice Spice. What's the person's name?
Yeah, I suppose.
He wasn't dating Ice Spice.
I don't know. What do you think?
I saw that rumor.
Yeah.
Maybe he was.
Was he? Was he dating Ice Spice?
I think he was.
Yeah, I think so
I
too.
think he was. He was trying
I
to
think
throw
we just
it
all
off.
confirmed it right here, right now.
I know. She messaged me and said,
She said, hey, Dan.
She's thirsty for UFC lightweight, shopping around.
Now they have that new contract. Ice Spice
Did you love his reaction though? It's like Charles Oliveira dating Ice Spice. He just quote tweets it. What?
Yeah, first
And
it's
then
your
it's
fight,
like-
and then it's this.
Then it's like
married.
Charles Oliveira has reportedly broken up with Ice Spice, and he's just like, what? what a time for his life. Your fight, Ice Spice breakup.
he's getting a lot of heat, isn't he? He needs to get off. Maybe piss or get off the pot.
You want
Now
next?
we'll see. Now, like, a lot of the other guys are coming off, like, a lot of the big names in the division are coming off losses, right? Like, it's not a straightforward situation. Oliveira, Chandler, Gagey, Poirier, like the biggest names in our division are all coming off losses. So to then come in with a 3-fight win streak, top 5, like now these other guys that I've been calling out for the longest periods of time are gonna have to start calling, because I've got something they want, which is a win streak, and for them to sit and think that they're gonna get like a title opportunity off a loss is just,
There's been a bit of that
they
going
can't.
on, right?
But they can't do that. I think that's a bit of smoke and mirrors from old Chandler. Like, you're not getting a title shot off of getting stopped by Poirier.
You don't reckon they feel bad and they're like, you didn't get the
They
He's a
feel
nice
bad.
kid.
The UFC feel. The UFC's. What did you just say? The UFC's
We need to keep our credentials down.
UFC's feelings. They hurt their feelings.
It's a good point. It's a good
You
point.
don't have feelings.
God damn it. Yeah, what do you think
Get
about...
out there and fight, monkey.
Hey, do it again. What do you think about the division in general? Like, Islam's potentially out for a bit. People are going, do you do an interim fight? There's a few names floating around, like, Armin, Charlie Olives, all sorts of guys. What do you think should happen next if Islam is out for sort of a prolonged period of
Yeah,
time?
I think that's why the UFC made Gamrot fly down here and fight me. Like, you think he wanted to do this? Like, I don't think he wanted to travel this way, and I don't think he wanted to go out of his way to fight me either. Like, I think, like, his last couple of fights, he beat Turner and RDA, but in both of those fights, like, he was hurt, and he like managed to edge out a victory over those two guys. Like impressive wins to like hardcore fans, but that's very hard to market a guy as like, because in reality, you just wait for the title fight and then he's next in line, right? Like, that's the reality of it. But for him, like, he's hard to market a guy who's just like fighting in the style. Like, obviously, even like Bilal, he had to go on such a long win streak just because of the style in which he fights. So it's like a win-win for the UFC is that he gets to go out there with like an exciting fighter who's going to actually fight him and push the action and make it an exciting contest. He either gets like a big name, like a name win and an exciting fight, or you get a bigger name guy back in the mix. So like UFC will only ever book a fight when it's a win-win situation. They never book fights where it's like win-lose and they want one guy to win. They only ever book fights where it's win-win. So regardless of this, I think the UFC win.
I mean, it's winter in Perth and it's pouring rain. Why wouldn't you want to fly down here?
Why wouldn't you want to come all
likes
this
forests,
way? But I'm
alright,
just
guys,
saying,
he likes forests.
everyone just
forests.
bitching and complaining about how far they have to travel. I am just like, sympathy from me, you can shove right up your ass. So, like, I have no sympathy for anyone doing this because I have done some wild shit in my time. Having to fly to this is
And
what
not even in the UFC.
This is what I have to
Just
do.
in life in general.
That's true. We'll talk about that after. Know what that red light's on. But this is what we have to do every single time, and it's not even like, bro, I've flown to England. I've done some pretty crazy trips. So this is like not even far. Like, these guys are coming from. Some of these guys are coming from Vegas, they're coming from like LA, and they're bitching and moaning that they had like a big trip. It's like, this is the trip we do every single time, let alone some of the bigger trips I've done.
100%. I know, like, obviously no one wants to break their arm, let alone multiple times, but do you think in some ways it's worked out ideally in terms of like the Bobby Green fight would have been incredible, it would have been a banger, it would have been fun, but like you wouldn't get the ranking necessarily that you get with Gamrot. Do you think it's kind of worked out a lot better in some ways?
Yeah, I can't say. It was good to have that amount of time off, just especially at this stage of my career, and it just puts like a lot of perspective back in everything. Like, a lot of time away from the sport gives you a lot of time to think. Like, well, what, like, valuing what you have next, and putting like the whole game in perspective. And it's like, yeah, do you want to be an exciting fighter, or do you want to work your way towards the title? And it's like, with that time off, I had a good long hard look in the mirror and was like, yeah, I want to be fighting the best guys out there. Like, money, you can't say it's like just you're fighting for the money. It's got to be bigger than that, and that's working your way towards the title.
Also, not for nothing, but like, if you look at the two guys at the top, Islam, Armin, both phenomenal wrestlers, right? It can't hurt that you're testing yourself against one of the other best wrestlers in the division, right? A big win over a guy like that, what kind of message do you think it sends?
Yeah, it's like a funny one that people think it's like people have come out and said like it's a bad stylistic matchup. It's like, well, why do you think the UFC booked me with Jalen Turner? It's like they were so hell bent on that fight because they're like, this guy's longer than him and he's not able to use his range, which it was like, that's like a bad style. Like, a good hard striker with longer reach than me is probably like the worst one. A guy that's going to take me down trying to take me down is the most common opponent I've always been 6 foot, brother. Like there's I've always like been a long guy. Like people have always wanted to grab a hold of me and put me on the deck. So this is the most common style of fighter in which I've faced, and I feel like it's like one of the better suited fights for me. There's like a notion that I'm not, like I can't grapple, but it's like, for what? It's like because I got off the couch and got beaten by Islam Makhachev. It's like, well, that's not that's not like the worst contradictory evidence in the world when you say it out loud. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just it's a good opportunity for this fight just to remind everyone. It's just a reminder.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because Perth's going to be going crazy, right? As you go out there, you're walking into this octagon. But it's fascinating for me how you sort of discuss how you've had this mindset change where, exciting fighter to, wanting to accomplish this goal and get this title, right? Because you were talking about it earlier, like being an exciting fighter is addictive in a way because you get to go out there and make these crazy moments, but it doesn't necessarily amount. We've seen a lot of people in the past who have been exciting fighters who haven't been for 10 years in the UFC. It doesn't amount to success in MMA every single time. So how would you sort of, I guess, going full circle, how would you sort of describe the Dan Hooker that's about to walk out at UFC 305 against Gamrot? This is the Dan Hooker that did his big UFC debut and gave up his leg to basically be popped about 25 times in the leg lock just because he's immune to leg locks.
Like when I got in the UFC, like I was, like I've always been very self-aware. And when I first got in the UFC, like I was only 24 years old and I was not by any stretch of the imagination, like a very well-developed fighter with varying skills. I was probably like I would pressure you, get in your face, and try and wear you down and fight on the inside a lot. That's what I did when I first got inside of the UFC. So I knew that my skills weren't where they needed to be to succeed at a high level in the UFC at that age. So I knew there would be some development involved in the UFC. And you've seen in a lot of fights where some fights I've fought purely southpaw. Some fights I've fought and done this. Some fights I've wrestled. Some fights I've gone backwards. Some fights I've gone forward. Some fights I've moved left. Some fights I haven't even really been able to like switch stances and utilize that aspect of my game yet. So I feel like the last 10 years has been a development, and in the last year has been where everything's like really come together, and I feel like now I'm like a complete version of myself. Whereas like now I feel like times just changed. Like the level of a UFC fighter now compared with 10 years ago is not the same thing. I feel like the guys have to be like complete fighters when they come into the UFC now. You're seeing that with guys, the next generation of the city kickboxing fighters like Cam Ralston. That's a complete fighter. Navajo's Tulian. That's a complete fighter. That's a well-rounded round-rounded game of wrestling, grappling, striking. Like my game when I first got in the UFC was like barely like a forward pressure striker. You could not succeed in the UFC with that limited skill set. So yeah, you're going to get your ass kicked a few times because you're trying new things and you're developing and you're putting new tools into your arsenal and you're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. But it's like that or what? Stick to what you know, stick to what you're good at, and sink. Because if you were to forward pressure, fighters don't last very long in this sport. They do not last 10 years. So you have to adapt and adjust and add new skills in.
As we let you go, and while you're using the analytical part of your brain, we just want to...
Guys are getting in there before it switches back.
Everybody jump on, it's happening!
Before it switches
this. Cue the numbers, beautiful mind. I want to get your thoughts on, obviously.
I have my moments.
And before Casper takes back his submission ready, you ding a Concast.
That's right. That's right. You keep that's used now,
just free balling now.
One use. Raw dog. What do you think of the main event between Israel and Dricus from everything that you've seen in camp? I imagine it's been a wild camp. There's always like a million CKB boys on the card, but it's like you, Israel, Kai. Yeah. It's sort of like a bit more condensed. From everything you've seen from Israel in the training room, what are you expecting from this one?
Oh, bro, I was like, usually I'll like piss him off and chomp at his heels and try to get under his skin and stuff like that. But
what kind of stuff are you doing to get
I just stay like, mate, we talk shit to each other, like, but he's been on this whole camp. He's been locked in. Bro, I just stay away from him at sparring. Like I just can't be bothered anymore. Like I used to be able to be bothered, but he's just hitting too hard, bro. Like he booted me like in the arms, and I was just like, nah.
Fuck that.
Fuck that. Yeah, I go, nah, fuck that. And I was like, so bro, he's like hitting real hard. Took a lot of time. Like you have no idea how many injuries this guy was carrying and just shut up about and did not talk about. Or like I've seen him just full hobbling, and then just like that's when I get nervous for like big fights because he's carrying terrible injuries into these fights. So to see him back at 100% and to feel him in the gym and know how scary he is, Dricus, this is him for like a rude awakening, because the guy you saw in the last fight is not the same animal.
Just quickly, he's kind of known for that, like having the injuries, but also like not saying anything about it. How long do you think that's even been? Like, how long do you think it's been since you've seen like him at 100%? Because he's been so active, right?
Probably, I don't know. Probably like Tavares.
Cool.
Jesus. So like the whole UFC run, basically.
God damn.
Like the guy fights, bro. Like people can say what they want. The guy fights. The guy's had 100 kickboxing fights, like professional kickboxing fights. That guy is active. He will fight absolutely anyone. But yeah, it's been a really long time. Like when he smoked Brunson, he was on one leg. Like his knee was absolutely fried. When he's beaten some of his biggest wins in his life, I've been having an absolute heart attack because I know that they couldn't lift his arm over his shoulder a week ago. You know what I mean? So we haven't seen him in this form for a very long time. So I'm excited to sit back there, drink about 20 beers on my way out. Between me walking out of the cage and getting out back, I'm drinking about 20 beers.
Is this a call out to the fans cage side? Get the beers ready as
get the beers ready.
All the beers.
Get them cold, get them warm.
Shoe, cup, whatever.
Get them ready. Get them ready. Because I come here to kick someone's ass and drink beers. That's the only. And once I finish this fight, we're walking out with a smile on my dial.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah! And he's all out of beer. UFC 305, Forge and Fire, decade in the UFC. Dan Hooker, thank you so much, brother, for joining us. And practicing brother. Safe interviewing with Submission Radio.
Safe, yeah. Keep it strapped.